Hello, and welcome to Tracking the Cross podcast, where we delve into the most overlooked corners of American history, Southeast Georgia. And today, we journey back into the rural landscapes of the early 20th century Georgia, where a serene community was shattered by a gruesome and tragic event. Let's go back in time to 1930s in Waresboro, Georgia. Waresboro was a small, tight-knit town compared to the growing Waycross back in those days, and Waresboro's population at the time hosted 1,259 people compared to Waycross's population of 18,912. March 11th, 1930. Jim Parker drove into town with his quote-unquote wife, Cora Hazen, 2 children, one of which was 5 to 6 years old and the other one being a baby. He asked a man, Henry Mullis, sitting on his porch if there was a place where he could rent, in which Henry said yes and directed him to his nephew's property, who had a house and land available. Parker, in passing, tells Mullis that he lost $80,000 worth of dairy in his previous residence of Miami. Mullis assisted him regardless of his poor investments, because remember, it is the beginning of the Great Depression. As days went by, Mullis kept an eye on the Parker family. He recalls calling the couple very friendly yet unsociable. Direct quote from multiple sources. At this time, many animals started appearing at the Parker property. By May 24th, Mullis told another community member and journalist, G. L. Mock Jr., that a new woman and baby have appeared at the Parker property. Mullis asked about the new members and was told that it was Cora's cousin, Ethel Johns, and her baby. Parker, by a description match, began selling cheap pork and beef in town, with other neighbors stating that their animals and chickens had started going missing. With the amount of animals missing, Constable Rouse, an investigator, decided to go to the Parker property playing as a hog buyer to find the missing evidence. Rouse did in fact find the animals, and Parker started fleeing and was eventually caught. Parker ended up bribing his freedom with a mule, so the stories say. Months later, in mid-August, Mr. McQuaig, another community member, was asleep on his front porch when he was awoken by a wagon. By the next morning, he went to Waresboro to get supplies. A foreman on Mr. Bunn's farm informed Mr. McQuaig that a wagon did in fact go missing, and Mr. McQuaig was the star witness. The wagon left marks, but not of horses, but of footprints and wagon wheels, and following them led to the Satilla River and eventually the Parker house. Parker was arrested on charges of theft in Ware County. By this time, Ethel and her baby, who no one had seen, had been missing for months, roughly since the end of May. Mrs. Hoxie, a neighbor, invited Cora and her children to stay with them while Parker was in jail. While Cora was there, she confessed to Mrs. Hoxie that she was actually Parker's other wife. At the time, adultery was against the law, so with that notion, Cora went to jail. Cora confessed to Ware County Sheriff L.C. Warren that she was not actually married to him, further supporting her charges, and that Ethel fled to Toronto, Canada with a Mr. E. Everett. With this new context, we put together that Parker moved to Waresboro with Cora, who is not his wife, but actually his mistress. Ethel, once believed to be Parker's cousin, was actually his wife. At this time, we also learn that the older child is also Ethel's. So Ethel has a baby and a 5 to 6 year old child. Parker is the father. Parker's original intention was to leave his wife and the baby behind in Florida when he moved here. Mr. Mullis began speculating what happened to Ethel and the child, regardless of what Cora stated. Mr. Mullis contacted a C.H. Posey, a soothsayer and fortune teller in Moultrie, Georgia. Mr. Posey told Mr. Mullis to search the pea patch, specifically the spot where the bodies would later be found. Mr. Posey also stated that there would be bloodstains inside the side room of the Parker house. As to how Mr. Posey found the information, it is unknown. Regarding the time period, it is interesting that Mr. Mullis reached out to a soothsayer at all. By October 18th, Mr. Mullis began searching and plowing in the area that Mr. Posey marked. There, in that spot, with chilling results, were both the bodies of Ethel and her baby. Both bodies were stripped of most of their clothing, with the baby laying on Ethel's body. The children were taken to Ethel's father, Rabin Johns, in Hickox, Georgia. Mr. Johns came to Waresboro once the bodies were found to identify it. In this case, they matched the body using Ethel's teeth, as most of the body was decomposed. Mr. Mullis, Solicitor General Alan B. Spence, and Sheriff Warren brought Parker to the site, in which he showed not an ounce of remorse. Here is Mr. Parker's confession, written the same day.
I will tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I had a reason to hold out. When the time come, I told you I intended to tell you the clean truth, and when I have done that, I am done. What you want to do with me, I'm not going to beg for mercy, nothing of the kind. I will tell you nothing but the truth. Take me out and electrocute me or hang me or anything you want to do. I have nothing to say. I haven't got a word against any of you officers. I will say this much before you go any further. This man here before me, I learned him. I thought he was hard, but since I have seen him up there, I think he is just a fine man. After I got acquainted with him up there, at first I thought you were a hard man, but I will take it back. You treat me fine. I haven't got anything against any of the officers. Mr. Warren has treated me like a father to my face anyway. After what we've seen today, I know it is so awfully brutal, but gentlemen, if you put up with what I have put up with, it would look different to you. If you knew just what I know, no, I have never slapped a woman or hit one in my life. I used to work in a dairy. I just came home 2 or 3 nights in a week. I would get up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and be late and work at night. I tried to put up with it. That was after our first baby was born. I loved my baby, I did. I love it with as much as anybody could love a baby. After our second baby was born, we separated. About 4 months before it was born. I kept her and paid her house rent, and I got her everything she wanted. She had a trained nurse when the baby was born. Everything. When she got well enough to go home, she came home and I got into trouble. I told Mr. Warren down there, I served 16 months and she begged me to take her back. I took her back under this condition, feeling sorry for the baby and for her. I thought maybe it would be different. I went back to her and we lived together nearly 2 or 3 months. Well, during this time, I knew this woman and she was living right close to us. And she was a mother to the children, a real mother to these 2 babies of mine. She looked after them better than my own wife that you saw in the grave. They thought more of her. It went along all right until 2 or 3 days before February, Thursday, and she left Tuesday before we ever did anything, had anything to do with one another in any way, love affair in any way. I meant to talk to her about it, seeing one another every day, and she was leaving her husband before anything was said. We took the baby, and she left, and I moved to Orlando. I didn't see anything of her, so I figured on coming up here. I figured on going to Pearson, Georgia. This woman had an uncle up there and stayed there and got a divorce this fall and got married and then go back because we knew if we stayed there we would get into trouble, for we were living as a man and wife. And I promised my wife that I would write to her and let her know how the babies were when we left there, at least once a month. She began to beg and wanted to come up to see them. I knew it would not do. I tried every way in shape, form, and manner to keep her from coming. Still, she was bound to come. She wrote me a letter telling me she was coming. I wrote her back, and she got it 2 or 3 days before, and she came on anyway. Well, I came to town and did not know that she was coming and just happened to go to the post office after the mail, and I had a letter that she was coming, and she was coming that day. I did not know what to do. Now, I love this other woman. I love her as much as any man ever loved a woman in the world. I do not care who it is or where. I love her from the bottom of my heart, and I'm willing to die for her. This other woman and I were together all of the time. If I had worked in the field, she was there. If she had work to do at the house and I was not in the field, I was there to help her, and they got in a row. The babies called this other woman mother and called her mama. That's what they called her. And that hurt the other woman. And they got in a fuss and just kept going that way and just went from bad to worse. Now, I want to leave off right here for just a minute. I want to say some things that we discussed down there today. I want to tell my part of it, and I will go on. They said this woman had a hit or something on her head. There was never a blow, not one. She was not hit at all. There was not a scratch on her, and if her neck was broken, it was broken after she went in that place out there. I want to go back now where I left off. At this night when this happened, I went to bed early, just lying on the bed with my little girl. They were having a racket down in the kitchen, and that's the reason I went and laid down. I wanted to get out of it. This woman, and they got at it, and I don't think there was anything, just a grab, just all I ever seen, just grabbed and choked her. And there was no blood. There wasn't nothing, not a thing. I didn't know what to do. At first, I thought the first thing to do was to go get her father. I thought it would make deep trouble, and I thought I would phone for the sheriff. I didn't know who he was, nothing about it. And the only thing to do I seen was to bury him, and that's what I done. Neither one wasn't hit. The baby's skull wasn't cracked. They both went the same way, absolutely. That's all I have to say.
And here is a conversation between Mr. Spence, Jim Parker's attorney, and Jim Parker himself. I will be playing Mr. Spence. In the room at the time, your wife and this woman that you were living with ran together in the kitchen?
Yes, sir.
Could you see them from where you were at?
Well, not exactly, but when everything started, I got right up.
Did you see her when she grabbed hold of your wife?
Yes, sir. They were in the kitchen, right side of the table.
Did your wife do anything to her?
No.
Did she fight back?
No, the woman I was living with caught her right around the throat.
Was there any struggling between them?
Yes, the other woman struggled to get up some, but not very much. She threw my wife down and fell upon her, down on the floor side of the table. She had a hand held to her neck, kindly to her back. Stayed down there about 15 minutes. That's my best guess. I then got in the hallway. I wasn't doing anything. I didn't know what to do.
Was your wife hollering?
No.
Trying to fight?
She never hollered at all.
Was she trying to get up?
She did it first.
Where was the baby that was killed at the time your wife was killed?
It was in the bedroom.
When this woman got off your wife, what happened?
I turned and walked back out on the porch, and she got up and come out there.
Had she gone to the room where the baby was at the time?
No.
Then what did she do?
Well, she came out there and told me I had better do something with it.
And what did you do?
I told her I didn't know what to do. She said to get rid of it in some way.
Was the baby still in the room?
Yes, sir.
And then what happened?
Well, we talked there about a minute, and I told her that the only thing was to take her out in the cornfield, dig a hole and bury her. I didn't know what to do.
Did she go with you?
No, I went by myself.
Dug the hole?
Yes.
Took her out there and buried her?
Yes.
Did you tote her by yourself?
Yes, sir.
Where did you leave this woman?
I left her in the house.
And then what happened?
Baby went the same way.
And how do you know?
That's what she said.
Did you bury your wife before you went back to the house?
No.
You carried your wife all the way out there before the baby was killed?
Yes, sir.
Then how did you know the baby had gone the same way?
Well, that's what she said.
What did you do after you carried your wife out there?
I came back.
Why did you come back?
Because I knew that she was going to get rid of the baby.
And how did you know it?
Because she hated it so.
Did she tell you what she was going to do with it?
Well, yes. I knew she would.
Did she tell you?
Yes.
When?
Well, right after.
That was after she killed your wife?
Yes.
Then what did you tell her?
I said you might just as well. That is what I told her.
What did she do then?
Well, I'd taken her out and went back and got the baby. It was quite a little while taking her out there.
Where was the baby when you came back?
Right by the table, in the same place where the woman was.
She had taken it from the bed into the kitchen where she killed your wife?
Yes, sir.
It was lying there dead when you came back?
Yes. When I went back, she was lying on the bed.
Did you see whether or not she had killed the baby?
Well, I knew she had because she had told me she would have to get rid of it, and I told her it was the best thing to do.
How did you know where to look for it?
Well, I was right there when I came back in the house. There was nowhere for me to come in that house without seeing it.
What did you do then?
Well, I took it and carried it out there and laid it out downside of its mother.
What time was this?
About 9 o'clock.
Was the baby asleep at the time she killed your wife?
Well, I don't know whether it was asleep or awake. It had been quiet for some time. I can't answer this question just because I don't know.
Did you know the baby was dead when you put it in the grave?
Yes, it couldn't have been put in there alive because it was perfectly limp and limber. This woman did not go with me out to the grave when I buried my wife and baby. She stayed at the house. When I came back, she was lying across the bed. I don't remember just what she said, and I don't remember just what I said to her, My other 2 children were lying there in the same bed with me. The baby was near the room on the bed.
Do you know why she did not kill the other 2 children?
Well, she thought too much of them. She thought the world of all of them.
If she had suggested that she kill them too, what would you have said?
Oh.
Were you willing for her to kill the baby?
Well, I was not willing, but I didn't know any other way out of it.
You told her, however, you thought that was the thing to do?
Yes, sir. My wife and this woman had several fusses and fights before she was killed. I did not have a fuss with her. She quarreled with me quite a lot on account of the way we were living. She stayed there nearly 2 weeks.
Did you sleep with your wife or the woman?
I slept with the woman.
Who did your wife sleep with?
With the children. She just got jealous because I paid so much attention to this woman, I think. Another thing that hurt her was the 3 youngins calling this woman mother and calling my wife mama. I think that hurt her worse than anything else.
Was your wife undressed?
No, sir. She was in her stocking feet.
And what became of her shoes?
I buried them.
Where?
About west of the house.
Could you show the sheriff where you buried them?
Yes, sir.
You did not bury them in the same hole as your wife and baby?
No.
Did you bury anything else?
Well, I buried her clothes and in the same place with her.
What became of the baby's clothes?
Well, they all went in there together.
About how far from where she was buried?
It was out this way, not very far. It was in the same field. I wish to say I ask for no mercy, for nothing. I am ready to take it, no matter what it may be. The quicker the better. I wish it could be tonight, really. I'm willing to go to the gallows or the electric chair. I did not come down here to plead mercy. I came down here to tell the truth, and I have done it. The only reason that I have held out for telling the truth, what I know, because I love that woman. I tried to protect her. I had out to this time because I loved that woman from the bottom of my heart. But, I just had to tell the truth. I have made this statement freely and voluntarily without any hope of reward. It just seems though I had to make it to satisfy my own heart and soul.
Another suspect in the murder, in which she claimed Parker threatened to kill her if she did not do what he wanted. Many people, including the children at the school she taught at in Florida, wrote letters to the solicitor stating that she was a good woman and a law-abiding citizen. The verdict was concluded as not guilty after spending some time in jail for her crime of adultery. By December 18th, Parker was tried and attempted to plead insanity through kleptomania. This clemency was denied mercy, therefore being charged with guilt in the first-degree murder of both his wife and child. Here is a quote of the document, Answer to Petition of Clemency, which can be found on our website.
If there has ever been a crime committed in this sovereign state that required, justified, and demanded the death penalty, this one did. A man, 6 feet 2 inches tall, weighing approximately 200 pounds, hardy and able-bodied, cruelly, without justification or excuse, murdered his wife and own baby, threw them in a crude grave, and covered their bodies with Mother Earth, took his plow and planted peas over their bodies and lived in the house where they were murdered for months with his concubine, and he justly deserves the death penalty. In the name of truth and justice, the state respectfully prays that his honorable body refuse to recommend clemency.
He was sentenced to death by electrocution at the state prison in Milledgeville on January 9, 1931, but was consistently repealed, even with Parker attempting to commit suicide and escaping, but later being caught. Parker was officially electrocuted on April 1932. In 1940, there was an attic fire that destroyed several court documents, including those of the Pea Patch Murder case. However, with the help of Mr. McDonald, assisted in the podcast in locating these documents. Thank you to Daniel Scott Parker and his father, who helped in giving us these documents to make accessible for you. Thank you for listening to this installment of Tracking the Cross. Tracking the Cross is composed of Harlan Valentine and Ingram Connor Griffin, a duo of like-minded individuals that believe in preservation of local South Georgia history. Most resources for this episode will be listed on our Facebook at trackingthex, spelled TrackingThex, and the rest will be listed on our website, www.trackingthe.co, Tracking the Co, where you can get access to these episodes, behind the scenes, and more information for the history buffs out there. There are also 3 YouTube videos attached to this podcast episode, one being this podcast episode with accessibility captions, another being the Pea Patch Murder breakdown, and another where we explore the Pea Patch Murder house and the field in which the bodies were found. You can check it out at Tracking the X on our YouTube. Tune into our next episode, and thank you so much for tracking the cross with us. Until the next installment. Bye!